Hello guys, welcome to Anita Crotchets. The hook is my magic wand. My name is Anita. Please follow, subscribe, and ring the bell. Today we are going to be working this very beautiful dress. It's really common. I have seen it all over Pinterest, and I have made it before during the very first lockdown in 2020. Yes. And when I made it, by then I really didn't have equipment to start working tutorials. I have been passing over this dress several times and promising myself one day I would drop a tutorial. So this time I found the time, and today that's what we are going to be working. So I'm just going to take you through what we need. It's very simple, beginner friendly, and I'm also learning to work slow so that most of you can actually understand my tutorials and what I am trying to teach you guys during the videos. So yes, to get started, we need a pair of scissors, stitch markers. I'm going to be working with a 3.5 millimeter hook, and I'm going to be working with lightweight yarn. It is size 2 yarn, as you can see. And I'm going to be doubling my strands because it is so thin, so it is just to get me some sort of gauge. If you are working with DK yarn, you don't need to double your strands because it's just enough thickness for what we need. Remember, you don't need to work with heavy yarn or chunky yarn because this project looks much more better with lightweight yarn. So to get started, I am going to get my 2 strands and make a slip knot. I'll get my hook and insert it into the loop. And for the size that I am working, it is a size small to medium. I'm going to be working 120 chains. Now, to understand how many number of chains you need to start working with, now the number of foundation chains you should have on your row should be in sets of 3. So the total number of foundation chains you have, the total number of foundation chains you have should be divisible by 3. So I would suggest a size large to have like 150 chains. In that way, you are going to have more V-stitches all the way around and more coverage. And that's what we are looking for, because what I am working right now is in position to fit a size small and medium. Only difference is the number of chains I'm going to have in between every V-stitch for my hips will differ slightly. Okay. In that way, it's in position to cover sizes small to medium. All right. So here we are. I have finished working my chains, and this is what you have to keep in mind. You need to make sure that while you go back to find your very first chain stitch, you are not turning your cord. Okay. So here we are, and I'm going to get into that very first chain stitch. I just inserted my hook through the wrong side, and I'm just going to turn it so that I'm in position to place this right. There we go. So you get into the very first chain stitch, and in there you insert your hook and pull through a loop, and then pull through all 2 loops. That means we are working a slip stitch. Okay. Now here, what we are going to do to secure our cord is we are going to chain 1, and we are going to work a single crochet into the very first chain stitch right there, just like that. And then we are going to be working 1 single crochet into every chain stitch all the way around, for every chain stitch all the way around, until we get to the end of our row. Okay. So yes, like I said, I am trying to make sure that I am so slow. And just to give you an explanation as to why sometimes I am really quick, I tried to explain that to one of you that commented about my speed. And sometimes when I am working these tutorials, my kid is sleeping, and I am like working fast so that by the time she wakes up, I'm like at least halfway the project, or like somewhere before I can rest to take care of what I need to take care of. So the times that I keep, putting a project down to do this and do that, I lose morale. And you find that working like one tutorial for like 5 days, it is exhausting to get back to the very same project unfinished and then finish today and tomorrow and the other day. So sometimes I'm like, let me work this fast, and then later when she's sleeping I can do a voiceover. So yeah, it has really gotten to me, but I am glad at least she made 1 year the previous month. So at least I am glad that for the future I am going to be in position to find much more time to work these tutorials and teach you guys at the pace that you really want to learn from me. Okay, so yes, let's work our single crochets one by one into every stitch all the way around, and I'm going to meet you guys at the end of the row to show you how to close up our row, and then we can get started onto the next row. Here we are, and this is how it looks like. All right, so what we are going to do here is we are going to insert our hook into the very first chain stitch that started the row, and in there we are going to work a slip stitch. So that's how we end our row. Now moving on to the next row. Now this is where we are now going to start our design. The first row is going to be a mesh stitch row. So we are going to chain 5. Now 3 of the chains are going to act as a double crochet stitch, and then the other 2 of the 5 chains will be for the chain gap. So we chain 5 and skip 2 stitches. So that means into the 4th stitch of the of the row of the previous row we work a double crochet. Now once again we chain 2 and skip 2 and work a double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, chain 2, skip 2, and then into the next stitch you work a double crochet. You see, chain 2, skip 2, work a double crochet into the next stitch. So we are working a mesh stitch, and for this we are skipping 2 stitches and then work a double crochet into the next stitch. That's why I said in the first place that whichever number of chain gaps, I don't know if I said it, I'm sorry if I hadn't said it. Yes, whichever number of chain gaps that we work, make sure it is in sets of 3, because our mesh stitch is in sets of 3. Now you're going to just keep doing that until you get to the end of your row, and once you're at the end, as you can see, I will chain 2 and skip the last 2 stitches, and now I'm going to insert my hook into the 3rd chain stitch of the 5 chains that started the row, and there I will work a slip stitch just like that. So this is how it looks like. Okay, this is how your work should look like. Now for the next row I am chaining 4 because now I want to start the V-stitch. So 3 of the 4 chains is going to act as a double crochet stitch. Now into this very same stitch I'm working a double crochet, more like creating a V-stitch. Okay, now here what we are going to do is so we shall chain 1, all right, and we shall skip 2 and work a double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, all right, work another double crochet into that very same stitch, creating a V-stitch, then chain 1, skip 2, into the next stitch you work 1 double crochet, chain 1 double crochet once again into that very same stitch. All right, so basically the V-stitch is being worked into the double crochet stitches of the previous row. Okay, now here we chain 1, skip 2, work 1 double crochet into the next stitch, then chain 1, work another double crochet into that very same stitch. Okay, chain 1, skip 2, work a double crochet into the next stitch, and then chain 1, work another double crochet into that very same stitch, just like that. Okay, So this is what you are going to do for every double crochet stitch on the previous row. Sorry, for every double crochet stitch of the previous row, this is exactly what you're going to do all the way around. And I'm going to meet you on your last double crochet stitch, just so I show you how to end the row. Here is how it looks like. I have come to the end of my row, okay, and this is how it looks like. So to end our row, we are just going to be chaining one, skipping the next 2 stitches, and then working a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch of the 4 chains that started this row. So that's how you end your row. Now for the next stitch, I will need to get into the center of the V stitch. So I will work a slip stitch just so that I get into the center or the chain 1 stitch of the very first V stitch right here, okay? Now keep in mind, I am not turning my work. So what happens here is I'm going to chain 4. And like I said, 3 of the chains act as a double crochet stitch, and then the 1 chain is for the chain gap. All right. So once you have chained 4, you are going to work a double crochet into this very same chain gap or chain space. All right. Yes, there you go. Now what happens is we are going to work, remember previously I was having one I was working 1 chain in between every V stitch, but this time I am working 2 chains, skipping 2 stitches, then working a double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, work a double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, so once again we chain 2, all right, skip 2, we are skipping 3 actually. So we get into the next V stitch and work a V. In that way we work a double crochet, chain 1, and again a double crochet into that very same chain 1 space. Okay, so just to get you guys clear with what you're doing, yeah, we are working 2 chains right there, and then we are skipping 3 and getting into the next V stitch or the chain 1 space of the next V stitch. Then we work a double crochet, chain 1, once again a double crochet, all in that very same chain 1 space. Chain 2, skip 3, work 1 double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, work another double crochet into that very same stitch, just like that. Okay, so you see how it looks like. Now my intention of increasing the number of chains in between every V stitch is to get our our dress, sorry, not even a dress, not yet, we are not yet there. We are just getting our collar wider and wider so that we can get the coverage to our shoulders. Okay, that's why I'm going to be working different number of chains in between every V stitch. So you just have to go around with this very same thing that I have done until the end. I'm going to meet you right at the end so that I show you what to do. Okay, so this is how my work looks like. I made sure to chain 2 and work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch of the 4 chains that started the row, and this is how it looks like. You can see it is curving and getting wider. When you try to make it straight, it actually shows that it's more like getting wider, and that's what we want. All right, so for the next row, I am not actually going to change anything. I'm going to work a slip stitch into the next stitch so I get into the center of the first V stitch. All right, so like you saw previously, we were chaining 2 in between every V stitch, and that's what I want us to have. Okay, because I intend to have 2 rows for every increment that we are going to be working. So for this row as well, I am not changing anything. I'm just going to chain 4. Okay, and like I said, 3 of the chains act as a double crochet stitch, and the 1 chain is for the chain 1 space that has to be in between every V stitch. All right, so here I am going to yarn over and work a double crochet into this very same stitch, just like that. And then I'm going to be chaining 2. That's 1. And then that's my second chain stitch. Now I'm going to skip 4 stitches and get into that next chain 1 space that's in between the V stitch and work a double crochet, then chain 1, work my second double crochet all into the very same stitch, chain 2, skip 4, okay, then get into that next chain 1 space and work your double crochet, chain 1, work another double crochet all in the very same spot. Okay, so once again you can see that what we did on the previous row is exactly what we are doing for this row, because I intend to have 2 rows for every increment until I get the width I need all the way up to the coverage of my shoulders. All right, so you're just going to go all the way around with this very same thing, just like we did previously, all the way around until you get to the end of your row. That's where I'm going to meet you guys and show you what to do. All right, now as you can see, this is how it looks like so far, and yeah, I'm still needing more coverage. Okay, so let me just show you how to end your row. You will have to work 2 chains and then skip the next stitches, just get into the 3rd chain stitch of the 4 chains that started the row and work a slip stitch. Then you work another slip stitch just so we get to that chain 1 space of the very first V stitch. And now for the next row, we are going to chain 4 and work a double crochet into that very same stitch or that very same chain 1 space. Now for this row, I am going to be working an increment. So as you can see, we are trying to increase the number of chains that are in between every V stitch. So for this one, I am going to be chaining 3 and skipping 4, get into the next chain 1 space and then work a double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet once again into that very same chain 1 space. Okay, now chain 3 and skip 4, get into the next chain 1 space and work a double crochet, then chain 1 and work another double crochet into that very same chain 1 space, just like that. So that means for this row we are increasing the number of chains in between every V stitch, and now we are chaining 3 before we work the next V stitch. Okay, now this is what you are just going to do all the way around. By the way, this dress is very easy to make. It's just knowing when to make increments and when to stop making increments. Okay, so I'm going to let you go all the way around with this, and I will need you guys to work the next row as well, doing this very same thing. So that means even the next row you are going to be working 3 chains in between every V stitch. Okay, so that means we are going to have 2 rows of 3 chains in between every V stitch. Okay, so work this until the end, get to the end, work 3 chains and work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch. Do the very same thing on the next row so that we have 2 rows. Now this is how your work should look like after your 2 rows. Okay, this is how it looks like with me having 3 chains for the next 2 rows. You can see it's now wider and it's almost getting us to the picture or the image that we need for this dress. Now I am moving on to my next row, and here I am going to go straight into working a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space or the center of the next V. All right, now here, yeah, the very same thing as we start the row. We work 4 chains and then work a double crochet into this very same stitch right there. Now for this row, I am going to be chaining 4. Okay, here we had 3. Now this time I am chaining 4 and skipping 5. Okay, so chain 4. All right, then skip 5, get into the next chain 1 space and work a double crochet, chain 1, once again work a double crochet into this very same chain 1 space, just like that. Okay, now chain 4, skip 5, What I mean by skipping 5 is skipping that very first double crochet from the previous V, and then the 3 chains in between and the next double crochet, which makes it 5 stitches. Okay, so yes, chain 4, skip 5, and work a double crochet into the next chain 1 space, then chain 1, work another double crochet into this very same chain 1 space. Okay, so this is what we have. You are really going to see that there is that sort of increment, visible increment. Okay, our V's are drawing more further from each other, so just go around with this and work the next row with this as well. So I'm just going to get back and explain a few things before we can go on with, you know, the dress. Okay, most so like I'm just going to share adjustments to make for the next rows, then we can move on from there. So this is how it looks like after me working 2 rows with 4 chains in between every V stitch. Okay, so this is how it looks like. Remember, these are 2 rows of me working 4 chains in between every V stitch, and this is how it looks like. Now, before we move on from here, I am satisfied with the increment that I have right now, but the intention is for you to have a coverage, just like in the picture on the side. You need to have a coverage. Your piece right now should be in position to go all the way to your shoulders. Okay, just like in the picture you have. If you are not yet there, then what you have to do is you just have to keep increasing. Now, for people who are working larger sizes, like size large or something, please go ahead and work more chains. Like your next row should have like 5 chains in between every V stitch. Okay, so you work 2 rows of that, and then also have 6 rows in between every V stitch, and you work 2 rows of that. All right, so until you have the coverage I have described for you guys, that's when you stop working increments. Once you have the coverage that we need, then you are just now going to work, you know, the very same exact thing that you have been doing for every row. Now for me, I'm just going to continue working 4 chains in between every V stitch. Okay, now once you keep working, because now you don't need to increase anymore or to work increments anymore, this is how your work should look like. Okay, for me here, I just went ahead working 4 chains in between every V stitch until I had the length I desire. Now the length for where you need to stop working your rows is, you need to have a piece that is all the way almost at the fold of your arm or at the middle of your arm. Okay, that's when now you stop working those rows. So if you're working for size large and you find that you stopped working your increments when you were having 6 chains in between every V stitch, go ahead and just keep repeating 6 chains in between every V stitch until you have the length that is close to the fold of your arm. Okay, now for me, I have a total of 23 rows all the way from the start up to down at the bottom. I have 23 rows. Okay, and this is how it looks like. Now what I am going to do right now is I am going to just help you guys mark where you need to where you need to mark your piece to separate what should be the sleeves from the body of the dress. All right, now for me, all the way going round, like I said, we were working in sets of 3 and I have a total of 40 V's. You are going to count the number of V stitches that you have on your last row, and with these we are going to divide them by 4. What I mean by 4 is you're going to divide the total number of V stitches by 4. Why? I want us to secure what's enough for our waist, the V's that can fit your waist, okay, and also secure V's on the side for your sleeve. Okay, now for me, I have measured what can fit the waistline I am making this for is a total number of 11 V's. So I marked 11 V's from right there up to the other side. I have 11 V's. All right, Now, remember I have 40, so that means if I have 11 V's secured for the front bit of my waist, then I also have to secure 11 V's for the back piece of my waist. All right? That means every sleeve of mine is going to consume 9 V's. I hope you understand me, because I have a total of 40 V's. So I'm securing 11 for the front, that is half my waist, and then for the back, once again, it should be 11 V's, which makes it a total of 22. So that means I'm securing 9 V's on each side of my sleeve. All right. So I have marked left and right. As you can see, my stitch markers right there. So I'm securing 9 from the other side, so I have 11 at the back as well. So once you mark where your waist is going to run from, what's left is for your sleeves or for your arms. All right, and that should be at the side. I don't know how you guys are going to be in position to understand this, but there is a lot of mathematics, but it's very simple if you really get to understand it. Now what I'm doing here is I am marking the V stitch that is going to be at the back of my waist. Okay, and like I said, it is 11 at the front, so it should be 11 at the back as well. So from here I am counting 11 going to the other side. Remember, from the yellow stitch marker I counted 9 to get to the one I just marked right now. Now I am counting 11 to mark the back of my waist. Okay, so from the yellow to the very first one I have marked at the back, that is space for my sleeve, which makes it 9 V's for the sleeve. So I'm just ensuring it is 9 V's left on the other side as well, so that I have 9 V's for my sleeve, 9 on each side, making it 18, and then 11 and 11 at the back, making it 22. Okay, that gives me a total of 40 V stitches. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so where my stitch markers are marked is the front and back for my waist. Okay, what's left on the other side is for my arms. I hope you understand me, so try to make sure. So this is where my arm will pass, right there. Okay, and then from here up to those stitch markers right there is my waist, front and back. I hope now it's clearly understood. And this is where my left arm will be. All right, now yes, if you feel like the bat wing is not batting, like it's not really wide enough, it goes back to the V's and how many chains you work. Also, it goes back to the foundation chains that you worked. If you want really a wider sleeve, you will need to start with more number of chains or foundation chains, and then make sure that your increments are like, I don't know, we were working 2 rows per increment, so you can choose to work 1 row per increment so that your bat sleeve or your bat wing sleeve can get like wider and wider. Now, lucky enough, where I put my yellow stitch marker is actually where my row ended. So ensure that where you start counting your stitch markers or marking your V's is exactly where your row ended, so it is easier for you to like get into the work. Now here I am going to be joining the waist and leaving the sleeves, okay, out of this, because from now on I'm going to be working the body of the dress. So here I'm going to work a slip stitch into the next into the chain 1 space, and then work 4 chains. 3 of the chains act as a double crochet stitch. Now once I have the 4 chains, I have to work 3 chains. So I'm going to skip 9 V's. Remember, the 9 V's are for my sleeve. So I am working backwards. I basically turned my work. Okay. So once you have chained 3, you are going to skip the V's that we secured for the sleeve and get into the marked stitch at the back. Okay, and into the V stitch we are going to work a double crochet. I was trying to make sure I have 3 chains, not 4. Okay, So you see that this is us making an inverted V. Okay, now here, remember, for me, I stopped at chaining 4. So whichever number of chains that you stopped at when you were making your upper bit of the dress, those are the number of chains you're going to resume with here. So I chain 4 and skip 6 and get into the chain 1 space and work a double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet, all in that very same stitch. Okay, then once again I chain 4. Remember, if you had like 6 chains by the time you got here, you should be chaining 6. If you had 5, you should be chaining 5. I stopped at 4, so I'm chaining 4 in between every V stitch. Now we are going to go around working our row as it should until I get to the marked stitch. Okay? This is where the dress will confuse you. The moment you understand how to join this, that's when you will understand how simple this dress is. Now I am going to work this until the marked stitch right there. So basically what I'm doing right now is I am working along what I meant to be the back. Okay, so here it is. I joined from there, and that's where I started my row, and then I went all the way, and now I am almost right there at the marked stitch. So here I am going to chain 4 and get into the marked stitch. Okay, pay close attention, guys. This is it. Now here, when I get into the marked stitch, I'm going to yarn over and work a double crochet. And now I am going to yarn over and skip the 9 V stitches I said I secured for my sleeve. Now I'm skipping these and going into the marked stitch at the front, right there. And in there, I am going to work a double crochet. Essentially, I needed to work 2 double crochets together, but it all makes sense anyway. It does make sense even if I work it like this. So you can see I'm having an inverted, what should be like an inverted V. Okay, now here I'm going to chain 4. I'm going to chain 4 and I'm going to skip the stitches I have to skip and get into the chain 1 space of the next V stitch. And in there, I'm going to work a double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet, all in that very same stitch. So basically, I am moving on with the same mannerism of working my V stitches. And I want you guys to go all the way until the very last the last V stitch that is close to the chain 4 or the V stitch where we started the row. Okay, so just work your V's just like they should be until you get to that point. Okay, so basically that is how we like join, the front to the back, so that we are only left with working the waist and working the lower bit of the body of our dress. Okay, so go around working your V's as you should until you get to getting close to where we started the row, so I can show you how to end your row and how it should look like. Then I show you the result of what we have been doing. Okay, go around until you get if the marked stitch is at the yellow stitch marker, go around until right there. Okay, the V right there, this V right there, that's where you should stop. Okay, so let me meet you guys there, then show you what to do. Now I've gone all the way around, and this is what it looks like. Please make sure you do not confuse the chain 3 that started the row. Make sure you don't work into that V stitch that we started the row with right there. Literally, don't confuse it. It already has a stitch marker in it, so don't confuse it. Now once we are here, we are going to work our chains as we should. I'm working 4 chains like I said, and now I am going to, you see, the chain 3 really does confuse, but if you look closely, I'm going to get into the tip of that chain 3 and the double crochet that crossed over to the other side. So in there is where I'm going to work my slip stitch. Now let me just make sure I am showing you guys exactly what we have been doing. So you see how we have joined the front to the back. Okay, on this side where we started our work from, you can see it's that V. Okay, right there, it's the 3 chains and the double crochet right there, from the yellow right there to the blue. Okay, so you can see now we have joined, and what we are left with is our waist, and it's what we are working on right now. So you need to make sure that you have measured your work and really gotten to see that what you have left is exactly what fits your waist. Okay, remember the dress is going to pass from up. Okay, so it should be in position to fit your waist so that it can stretch out somehow to go through your shoulders. Now from here I am going to chain 4, and into that very same spot right there I'm going to work a double crochet. Okay, so now we have gotten our very first V. Okay, now I am going to chain 4. All right, and I'm going to get into the next V stitch, and I'm going to work my double crochet, chain 1, a double crochet once again, all in that very same stitch. You see that? Get in there and work your second double crochet. So you can see that where we started our row, we more like where we have the tips where we joined the work from, we are having what is like an inverted V, and now it's at the tip of that inverted V that we are working a V stitch. All right, so you're going to have a dress that does not have any seams on the side, and it looks like continuous because it actually is, but it won't show like seams on the side because we have managed to like put that together very well. So you're going to go ahead and work your V stitches just like you have been doing. Make sure that the number of chains that you have in between every V stitch is exactly what you had on the previous rows after you stopped working your increments. So I'm going all the way around so that I get to the other side where we joined our piece from, front to the back from, so that I show you how to also maneuver that, that point, and I'll leave you get to finish the whole row on your own. Okay, so let's work this super fast and get there, then I can show you what to do and how to like maneuver that point. All right, as you can see, this is what it looks like, and I am headed to getting to this point right here where we have our inverted V. So I am almost there. This is how it looks like, and as you can see, the inverted V is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 4, and once I have my 4 chains, I'm going to get into the tip of our inverted V. So these are the chains and this is the V. So that point right there, okay, you see that's the V, and the inverted V rather. So that's where in there I'm going to work my double crochet, then chain 1, again work a double crochet into that very same spot. Okay, once you have that, everything else remains the same, nothing changes. You're going to chain 4, skip 6 stitches and get into the next chain 1 space, work your double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet into that very same spot. And here my kid is actually throwing combs at me. Please ignore her, she's really looking for my attention and I don't have the time. Work this until the end. Get right here, chain 4, work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch to end your row. Now I'm just going to get back and explain adjustments for the next rows because now I know we are getting closer to our lower waist, and our lower waist is actually wider than what our high waist is. So once you come to the end of your row, your work should look like this. It's now actually more clear. It's more clear. This is where our waistline is going to be, so we need to get it wider for our hips. Okay, I love the V-stitch because it stretches a little bit, so it gives room for, if you made something and maybe may not fit someone so well, rather than any other stitches, this actually gives some more like room for expansion. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to chain 4. Sorry, I'm going to work a slip stitch. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to end my row with you guys. So I'm going to chain 4 and get into the third chain stitch of the 4 chains that started the row, and in there I'm going to work a slip stitch. That's how you end your row. Okay, now for the next row I intend to have an increment, and that's the increment I am going to carry on with until the end of the dress. So what happens is I'm going to work a slip stitch, okay, so that I get into the chain 1 space, and there I'm going to chain 4 and work a double crochet into that very same stitch. Now, unlike the previous row, for me on this row I am working 5 chains. So chain 5 and get into the next chain 1 space and work a double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet, all in that very same stitch. Chain 5, skip 6, work a double crochet into the next chain 1 space, and then chain 1, work another double crochet into that very same spot. Now I am working 5 chains in between every V-stitch. So if you previously were working 5 chains or 6 chains in between every V-stitch, for this row you're going to be working more than that, like +1, okay? +1. Why? I want our dress or body of our dress to get wider so that there is a comparison between the waist and the hips, all right? So you're going to go around working your 5 chains, okay, and try to stretch your work out, and see that when you stretch it, it can actually stretch out to meet your hip width. That's after this row, okay? So once you are confident, if it doesn't give you the width of your hips that you need, you can go ahead and increase the number of chains that you work in between every V-stitch. That's after making sure that you have 2 rows for every increment, okay? So if you work 5 chains for the next row, work another 5 chains for the next row in between every V-stitch. Then after that is when you can resume with increasing, okay? But for me, once I worked my 5 chains, I was confident with the width that I have, and I was sure it's going to meet my hip width. So from there, you will just work the very same rows and repeating the very same thing for the next rows, working the very same number of chains in between every V-stitch, okay, until you have the length of the dress that you desire. So for me, I'm just going to keep repeating 5 chains in between every V-stitch, all the way around for every row until I have the length of the dress I require. So go around doing this very same thing until you have your desired length, and right there you'll cut your yarn and weave in your ends, and now you have your dress complete. Okay, I hope you guys have loved this tutorial, and I hope you have learned something from it. I am looking forward to sharing more tutorials with you guys. Thank you so much. Also, I started memberships, so there's some videos I really would love to share with members that have paid a particular amount of money to watch more of my creations. There's some tutorials that are only going to be available for members, some live streams that are going to be available for members. So please check out my memberships and see if you can support me in any way you possibly can. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.